He tries to move on. He tries to laugh loudly, respond to messages, occupy his mind. But his soul drags heavy, as if something is missing. As if something is screaming deep inside, and he no longer knows how to silence it. The angels say, he can't replace you. Because you weren't just a presence. You were a destiny. You didn't come into his life as a distraction. You came as an answer. As a mirror. As a turning point. And he felt that from the very beginning, even when he didn't have the words to explain. It was the way you saw him. As if you looked beyond the persona he created to survive. As if you touched a part of him that even he couldn't name. But he couldn't hold on. And now, everything he took for granted visits him. In the places where you both were. In the songs that remind him of you. In the choices that today feel empty. You were the detail that gave meaning to the whole. And he discovered that too late. The angels watch him try to move on, force joy, simulate detachment. But they also see, with each passing day, he's going a little more insane within his own silence. Because you weren't just a chapter. You were the entire book. And he threw it away without reading it all the way through. And thine ears shall hear a word behind thee, saying, this is the way, walk ye in it. Isaiah 30 verse 21. You were that way. And now, even without a map, he tries to find the trace you left behind. Because what you were, no one else can be. He hasn't forgotten you. Not because he didn't try, but because you touched a place no one else could. And the more he tries to pull you from his memory, the deeper you become. Because what you stirred wasn't just an emotion, it was openness. The angels say, she didn't break down his defenses. She slipped through the cracks. You didn't invade him. You didn't demand anything from him. You simply were truth. And it was that truth that dismantled everything he built to protect himself. He learned to survive by closing off. To love with fear. To feel with restraint. And when you appeared, something in him shouted, caution. But the heart responded, stay. He fought against it. Pretended it was nothing. Tried to label what you both shared as temporary. But what comes from the soul cannot be labeled. It can only be felt. Now he is trapped within himself. Caught between the desire to return and the fear of not being enough anymore. Trapped between the certainty that he loves you, and the panic of being rejected for everything he couldn't offer. The angels surround him in silence. Showing him that love doesn't demand perfection. It demands presence. And it is this presence that he couldn't sustain. So today, even surrounded by other bodies, he feels alone. Because when you left, he was left with the walls. But without the warmth. And now, the cold belongs to him. And the emptiness bears your name. You gave everything. Not in excess. But wholly. You were true even in the silences. And yet, he hesitated. Not because you were too much, but because he didn't know how to receive love from someone who wanted nothing but truth. The angels say, she didn't waste time. She planted light where he still lived in shadow. You surrendered wisely. You listened more than he spoke. You saw more than he showed. And because of that, now you've chosen to return to yourself. Not out of pride, but out of care. To love cannot be a process of emptying. To love should not be a place where you dissolve. And you realized this when you had already given so much of yourself in that space where he couldn't stay. Now you breathe more slowly. You talk less about him. And more about yourself. You learn to love what you see in the mirror. And to not seek validation in his eyes that you already hold within yourself. The angels are strengthening you. Not to forget what was real, but to never forget for love. You still feel. But now, you feel from a steadier place. More clear-headed. More worthy. And that is precisely what he feels. Because when you step away with love for yourself, absence becomes a mirror. And he looks at himself. And sees everything he lost. Not because you left. But because you returned to yourself. And this woman you are becoming is even more impossible to forget. He thought he was in control, that his absence was a sign of strength, that staying silent would protect him from surrender. But what he didn't know is that you would become a mirror, and looking through you would make him tremble. The angels say, she didn't confront him. She reflected him. You never shouted, never pointed a finger, never demanded that he be something he wasn't ready to be. You simply existed with such truth that he had nowhere left to run. Your love illuminated the places where he hid his shame. Your presence revealed the man he pretended not to be. Your gaze dismantled him, not by force, but by purity. And that's why he still carries you. You were a reflection of the part of him that wants to love deeply, but still sabotages himself out of fear. You showed him the version he could be, and that broke him in half. Now, he lives between what he was and what he saw through you. And every attempt to move on with someone else only increases the contrast. Because no one else forces him to look within. No one else makes him want to be better without pressure. No one else saw him like you did. And that seeing doesn't fade away. The angels continue to reveal slowly what he still can't accept, that true love, when it passes, doesn't destroy, but transforms. Even if it hurts. Even if it takes time. You weren't a mirror to stroke his ego. You were the reflection of the soul he's still learning to inhabit. And that's why he returns to your name. Even if only inside. Even if still silent. Something inside him changed. Without fanfare. Without confession. Without warning. But it changed. He no longer feels pleasure in the same places, nor comfort in the same presences. And that confuses him, because everything seemed to work, until it stopped making sense. The angels say, she awakened in him the desire to feel, and now he no longer knows how to live while asleep. You said nothing. You didn't ask for transformation. You just were too whole not to touch the bottom. And now he feels. He misses your lightness. The calm you left in the atmosphere. The way you made him breathe deeper, even without realizing it. Before, he ran from everything profound. Now, he drowns in everything shallow. And no matter how hard he tries to recreate the routine, something displaces him. A strange feeling that someone is missing. That something was left behind. That what he is living now is half. He is awakening. Not with flowers, but with silence. With insomnia. With memories that come uninvited. And the hardest part is admitting that you were the seed of this movement. That your presence stirred where no one else touched. That your love, even if wounded, was too real to go unnoticed. The angels are opening this field within him. Removing layers of defense. Loosening old ties. And guiding this man toward the only direction that now makes sense. The truth he lived with you. He is waking up. And when he fully awakens, it will be too late to pretend you weren't everything. He feels the urge to get closer, and then pulls back. He feels he needs to hear you, and stays silent. He wants to reach out to you, and freezes. You can't imagine how many times he rehearses his return, and gives up at the last second. The angels say, he is trapped in the cycle between what he desires, and what he fears losing for good. You don't see, but he still feels. He feels when you distance yourself energetically. He feels when you shine without him. He feels when you show up whole, and he realizes he no longer has anywhere to hide. This back and forth isn't disinterest. It's fear. It's wounded pride. It's the echo of everything he couldn't become. You represented commitment. And for someone who has lived in a shell for so long, that feels like a threat. But the cycle is wearing thin. The resistance no longer holds strength. And every time he tries to pretend he doesn't feel, his body reacts. His soul aches. The emptiness grows. He starts to realize that fleeing from true love is condemning himself to repeat what never worked. The angels accompany him in this movement. They see the inner struggle, the war between wanting and achieving, the tension between recognizing and acting. And even though he hasn't crossed the line yet, you're no longer in the same position. Because your silence today is different. It's not waiting. It's acceptance. And that breaks the cycle. Because now, he doesn't just feel your absence. He feels the real possibility of losing you completely. And it's this risk that, for the first time, begins to overwhelm him. You didn't come to heal him, but you did heal. You didn't try to change him, but he changed. You didn't promise eternity, but you left a mark that even time can't erase. The angels say, she was the most silent love, and the deepest. You didn't give speeches. You offered presence. You were a hug even from a distance. Calm in days of war. Truth in a world of masks. And that disarmed him. He got used to relationships where love came with demands, with expectations, with guilt. But your love was shelter. And he didn't know what to do with that. He thought he could leave and then come back. He thought you would always be there. He thought strong love doesn't tire. But what he didn't realize is that even the purest love withdraws when it isn't recognized. Now he feels. He feels the healing interrupted. He feels the peace that left with you. He feels that no matter how much he searches in other presences, none touch him the way you did. Because you didn't love his appearance. You loved his soul. And that, no one else has been able to replicate. The angels envelop him with the fragrance of memory. With scenes that return in the middle of the night. With silences that resonate like a prayer. With the absence of you that becomes an unnamed fever. And in this absence, he begins to understand that you were the only love that made him want to be a better man. And that now, that's all he needs the most. He thought it was coincidence. That it was just another phase. That with time, the memory of you would fade. But with each attempt to move on, something pulls him back. Like an invisible thread tugging him inside, without explanation. The angels say, his heart is being led by paths he doesn't yet understand, but which take him back to you. You made no promises. You didn't ask for oaths. You were simply love. And when love is pure, it doesn't disappear. It remains in the subtle realm, operating where the eyes can't see. The heavens haven't forgotten what you offered. The tears you withheld. The prayers you made for him while he slept. The days you stayed, even without being welcomed. And now it's time itself that is showing him what you always knew, that this connection wasn't ordinary. It wasn't a distraction. It wasn't just a meeting. It was a mission. He feels this in the subtext of the day. In the pauses between commitments. In the void that no one can fill. In the signs that begin to repeat, your name, your voice, your memory. The angels are opening his eyes. They are dissolving the illusions. They are blowing answers. They are preparing the heart. And you? You move on. In peace. Without haste. Without fear. Because what comes from God returns by him. And whatever you ask in prayer believing, you will receive. Matthew 21 verse 22. Your love was a living prayer. And now, the heavens respond. He holds the phone. Reads old conversations. Thinks about writing something. But deletes it. Not because he doesn't want to talk to you, but because he's afraid of finding you different. He's afraid of not being welcomed anymore in the place he left himself. The angels say, he feels. But he still struggles with the fear of not being enough for the woman you've become. You didn't stop in time. You healed. You cried what you needed to. And then you rose. Today, you shine differently. Not for someone else. For yourself. And that frightens him. Because deep down he knows, the woman he left is no longer the same. And if he once had space, now, he must earn it. He rehearses. He approaches. almost calls out to you, but hesitates, because his absence has become a mirror, and he sees himself, not as the man he wanted to be, but as the man who ran away, who silenced himself, who lost. The angels are with him at this very moment, between wanting and acting, between feeling and speaking, between fear and love. They whisper, she never wanted perfection. She wanted honesty. And it's in this honesty that he begins to find courage. Courage to open up, to acknowledge what he felt, to express what he kept hidden. And perfect love casts out all fear. 1 John 4 verse 18. He still fears, but the love you left behind begins, at last, to conquer him. You no longer need answers, because you've already realized that the greatest confirmation doesn't come from his words, but from the peace you feel today when you remember. The peace of one who loved wholly, who gave their best, who has no debt to their own heart. The angels say, she didn't wait around. She moved forward with faith. You don't expect a message. You don't await an explanation. You walk lightly, knowing that what is true does not fade away. It transforms. It purifies and returns at the right time, in the right way, or doesn't return, and that's okay. Because now, what drives you is not the absence. It's the confidence. And he feels that. He feels the woman you've become. Strong, calm, whole. The woman who doesn't return out of longing, but only if love also returns with dignity. You were once light in his darkness. You were healing in silence. You were a presence that didn't ask to be noticed. And if it's meant to be again, let it be a choice. Let it be out of courage. Let it be reciprocal. The angels conclude by saying, what is yours will not be lost. What is not, dissolves before it can hurt you again. You don't need to understand anymore, nor justify. Your soul already knows. He might come back. But now, who chooses is you.